Monday, we talked about running comps for the purpose of like buyers, or we also looked at the RPR system for running comps for like those in your database if you wanted to send out like a market analysis of their property on an annual basis, which I highly recommend doing as one of those interaction points. And then running those comps for potential buyers who want to write an offer on a property. Today, we're going to talk about running comps for a potential listing or a listing appointment, or, we've already got the listing agreement signed, but it was signed 3 weeks ago or a month ago, and now we're getting ready to go on the market. So we're going to talk about how to price properties appropriately. Okay. So that's our plan today. So I'm in Barry's, the main search page. As with the comps that we talked about on Monday, I do all of my searches for market analysis is in the interactive map search. So that interactive map search, that's what I like because it allows me to pinpoint the specific neighborhood. So we're going to go interactive map. Okay. Then what I like to do is I like to look at what the property looked like the last time it sold. Hopefully, you're familiar with these people that you're running this for, that you're getting ready to list their properties. So you've seen the house, you know what the condition is, you know what it looks like on the inside. But let's say somebody calls you up and they're like, hey, we're thinking about listing our property. Can we have a time to sit down with you and go over what that would look like? And you're going to be like, yes, absolutely. So you're going to, go through that pre-listing packet. If you don't know what I'm talking about, we've done lots of trainings on it. So check the channel or the spreadsheet for the previous list of trainings to see what that preparing for a listing presentation looks like. But you're going to put together that pre-listing packet, which is going to include a market analysis report, which means that we may be running this without having seen the property. Okay, so what I like to do is, remember on Monday, I talked about this little box with the arrow on the gray toolbar on the right-hand side that opens up an additional Barry's window. So we're just going to pop that open. That's going to open up that secondary window. And the reason I'm going to open up this secondary window is I want to do some research on the property. Number one, to see if I can track down bedroom and bathroom count, square footage, lot size, and if I can track down like what it looked like the last time it was on the market. So let's go. I'm just going to pick an address that I know is not currently on the market. All right. So here is that property. Here's one of the reasons. I know last week we talked a lot about grids and different things and setting this up. I always have the status date on here so that when I do this type of search, my default search is set to the one line grid search. So it's called one line grid, not the Barry's one line, but the one line grid, because it allows me to change the columns, adjust, add, and take things away. It also allows me to see things like this. So I've got the status date on here, which makes it really easy for me to scroll down and see when the last sale of that property was, instead of having to, if this wasn't here, I might have to like start at the top and scroll through them to figure out when the most recent closing was. But this allows me to access that pretty simply. So this allows me to look at this property and be like, oh, here's what it looked like the last time it was for sale. There's the front room, right? So I'm really looking at, hey, what are the floors? How do the bathrooms look? Are the bathrooms kind of updated? How's the kitchen look, right? Is it builder basic, or did they do some upgrades since it was built? And then I'm also looking at like the yard space and such. So I usually scroll through these. I'll show you a really neat feature of this house. Hold on, because I know what property this is. This is kind of cool. Look, little side feature here. Let me make sure that you can still see this. Oh, good. You can. All right. So they added a barn door. All those houses in like the Vacaville area, well, California in general, they build all these master ensuite bathrooms with no doors to them. They actually added a nice barn door across there so that they could close that off and actually have somebody getting ready while the other person was still sleeping. So that's kind of a neat feature of this property. That wasn't what I was going to show you though. Hold on. Bathrooms are nice. So these would be considered like the countertops in the bathrooms are builder basic. The cabinets are upgraded because they're that darker color, which people like a little bit better. But these are basically, they do have like shutters, right? So I'm looking for those features to see what this property had. And when I had these people on the phone call preparing for this appointment, right, I asked them, hey, what updates have you done to the property since you purchased it? Right? Because now I know that, hey, since we purchased it, not what updates have been done to the property, but what have they done? Have they done any since they bought the property? That way I know how it compares to what these pictures look like for the most part. Let's see here. We're almost to, I was just gonna, oh, look at this cool wall here. It's got a Harry Potter mural on it. Magical. It's got like the Kibbage Field or whatever that's called. And over here, you've got the little train, the little flying car. My daughter actually painted that. That's why I thought I would scroll through the pictures to show you guys that mural. Anyways, there we go. All right. Here's the backyard. So I like to look at kitchens, bathrooms, floors, and yard. I usually have a conversation with them if I haven't seen the property about what updates they've done. And even better if I could say, hey, can you guys just snap a quick picture of like your kitchen? I don't care how messy it is. I'm just looking at the style of the kitchen, some bathrooms, and your backyard for me. Because if I can get them to send me over those pictures, then I know what updates and upgrades have been done. But those are kind of the main things that I'm looking for when I look at the previous listings photos. All right. So now we're going to come back over. Oops, sorry, that was the picture window. Let me shrink you guys down just a little bit. There we go. All right. So now let's go back to that interactive map search. And if you have any questions, I do have the chat box open. You can also just unmute yourself and ask your question or raise your little zoomy hand. Anybody have questions so far about what I'm looking for when I pull up the previous listing? All right. So I'm going to, in the white toolbar now down here at the bottom, I'm going to plug in the property address so that it's going to mark that property on the map and zoom in to center in on that property. Now, I don't want it to remove the marker, but I do want this window to go away. So I'm going to X out of that. And I did leave that other window open so I can toggle between those two windows. That's going to allow me to go back and double check the bedroom and bathroom count, the square footage, and the lot size. So I make sure that I'm comparing similar properties. Okay, now what I'm going to do, so I have that little pin mark on my map still, so I know where that property is located. I'm going to zoom out because what I'm looking for now is I want to focus in on that neighborhood. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go draw, very similar to how we ran comps on Monday. I'm going to hit draw. I'm going to hit the little triangle tool with the little circles on it, the polygon tool. Okay. I'm going to, if we know what that neighborhood, what the boundaries are of that neighborhood, right, what the area is, then makes it really easy. And again, if we are not quite sure what the neighborhood is, like I've helped lots of people run comps in like Sacramento and different things where I'm not familiar with those neighborhoods, but you can usually tell based on main streets and natural barriers. That's kind of right how the neighborhoods are set up. Okay. I know that the houses on the left side here of Cogburn Circle are one development because I'm familiar with Vacaville, where the houses on the right side are newer properties. If I wasn't familiar with this neighborhood, I might have been like, well, this looks like it's all part of the same thing. So I might have looped those in there. But you'll find out that these are a little bit newer. So anyways, so I always start with the existing neighborhood, just like we did on Monday. Whoops, I just zoomed out a little too far. All right, then I'm going to go to the search criteria. I want to update the statuses. I want the active properties on there because those are our competition. Okay, that's who we're competing against when we come on the market with our price. Okay, but I also want to know, hey, what's currently in contract and pending? Right? What's not only come on the market, but what's actually been priced appropriately that somebody wrote an offer on it. And then what has closed. And again, I usually go back about 3 months starting. So I'm going to go November, December, January. We're into March now. So we're going to go December 1st. Okay. And again, today's like, March 6th. But I'm not going to go to, December 6th. I just go to the 1st of that month. So it might be a little bit more than 3 months. I'd rather go a little bit more than a little less. So I usually just click on the 1st of the month to make it easy. This property is 2,400 square feet, but we're going to start just there. So that's usually how I start my comp process, either way, whether it's for buyers or sellers. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to see what these properties are. So I'm going to come over here to the displays drop down, which is on the right-hand side of the page next to the search criteria. And I'm going to toggle back over to that one line grid. Okay. That's going to help make those properties just visibly easier for me to compare them. All right, so see, this gives me like the square footage. So I know here, like this Canterbury one is ginormous. It's 3,700 square feet, so I probably don't want that one. Let's sort these properties by square footage. So I just clicked the square footage button. No, I didn't. I clicked something else, but that's all right. Let's try this again. Square footage. All right, now it's smallest. Nope. It's not sorting for me today. There we go. Smallest to largest. If it doesn't work once, just keep clicking until you get it. So the property that we're trying to comp is 2,400 square feet. These properties here, I'm interested in this one because it said it sold at 975. All right. So I'm going to click on that Lancaster property, that Newcastle property, which is 2,500 square feet. I'm going to click on the other Lancaster property, which is about 2,600 square feet. These other ones are a little small. You've got Westminster at 1,800. You've got Cogburn at 1,600. These are all selling in the mid to high sixes for the most part. I may go up to 3,000 just so I can compare this Hampton property that's pending. Okay, but remember when an appraiser is going to look at it, when we start talking about buyers, we want to know what's this property going to appraise for, which is also important for our listings. But when I'm considering listings, I'm thinking, okay, so a 4-bedroom, 2,400 square foot property with a loft, right? What is the buyer that's looking at that property also looking at a 3,000 square foot property? That's probably still in the realm of shoppers versus like an 1,800 square foot property. The same buyer probably isn't wanting a 1,800 square foot property that's wanting a 2,400 square foot property. So I'm really kind of thinking like a buyer here when I'm choosing my comps for getting ready to go on the market of what buyer pool am I targeting with this property and what other properties match that criteria. So I've checked the boxes for the ones that I think kind of match. I'm not extremely happy with my comps here because I've got 1 pending, 1 active, and 2 closed. Okay. So I really want some more. My goal here is I'd like to kind of have like at least 3 closed and a couple of active properties so that we know what we're up against. So I'm going to go back here, just so you know, too, I could also click on here and look at these properties. So this like Lancaster one at 975, that was my guess. I should have looked at the lot size. It's a huge lot with a swimming pool. So I'm actually going to take that off my comp list. Okay, so we're going to remove that one, which gives me 1 active, 1 pending, and 1 closed. So I definitely need some more comps. So we're going to hit this revise criteria button, which is going to take us back to that map search so that we can adjust our criteria a little bit. Now, I'm going to toggle back over to my Barry's window because this property was built in 2012. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go search criteria. First, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, to get some more closed sales, maybe in that neighborhood, I'm going to go back a month and see what that gives me. That gives me quite a few more. December was slow. November had more closings. So that's exciting there. I'm also going to come down here and go, hey, living area, I want 1,900 square feet and larger. Okay. And then I also want to cap it out at maybe like 3,200 square feet. Okay. There, so now I've got some more closed sales. So again, the reason that I did that is I'm thinking like a buyer, like somebody who's looking at a 2,400 square foot home might be looking at a 3,000 square foot home. 32 is probably a little on the big side, but that just gives me that kind of that upper range. And then 1,900 square feet is good. That's going to give me kind of that lower range of people that might be looking at a 2,400 square foot home. In addition to that, I'm going to expand my search just a little bit. So I'm going to go into this year built category. Again, if you don't have this, you could go into fields. because I don't want properties. This was built in 2012. So I'm going to say, hey, let's take out 2020 and after. So any properties that were built up to 2020, I'm going to include those in the search. Those that were built in the last like 4 to 5 years, I'm going to say those are probably too new to really compare to this one. So we've eliminated some of those properties, which did eliminate one of the other properties. And now if I wanted to try to get more active listings, I could say, hey, I could do this one of two ways. One, I could click on this. Oh, hold on, because I clicked on the thing. Give me just a second. Let me get rid of my little drawing box. All right, there we go. I'm going to go edit. I'm going to delete that second polygon that I just added. All right, so now if I click on my little marker, I could say, hey, give me properties a half mile out. That added a couple over here off Vanden Road that match. So what I'm going to do here, just to encompass that whole area, is hit the draw button. And I'm going to say, hey, we want to include all of these properties. All right. So now I'm going to look back over. I can look at these properties one of two ways. I can click on the dot, which is going to pull up that information. That one probably has a pool. So the other thing that I probably need to do, this one probably, oh, that one's probably a good comp. I'm going to go back to search criteria because my property doesn't have a pool and I want to compare apples to apples. So I'm going to say, hey, if they've got a pool, we want the pool to be no. And then we're going to hit close. It still likes this property. Let's see what this property looks like. So again, if I click on it a second time, it's going to zoom it into more of the listing detail on this one so that you can see more detail. I'm going backwards through the photos. This one is an amazing property. It's probably because it's single story and 2,800 square feet is why it's listed so high. That would be my guess on that one. Let's look at some of these other properties. We've got this one here, 2,600 listed at 860. Let's check that box. Let's look at those pictures. This one's got a larger yard, so we need to take that into account. It's a pretty good size lot. Let's see what that lot size is. It's 1/4 of an acre. So I'm going to uncheck this one. It's not a good comp either because we want them to be similar. And the property that I'm looking at is has a lot size of about 1/10 of an acre. Okay, so 1/10 of an acre to 1/4 of an acre is a big jump. I'm going to look at this one as well. Not really. Let's see here. So this is 3,100 square feet. This goes back to that's probably a little on the big side. I probably don't like that one either. This one was a decent comp at 2,600 square feet. Lot size is very similar. I like that one, so I'm going to check this box here so that it adds to my checked properties. That gives me 2 closed sales that I like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back into my search criteria. I'm going to go back. So I've already kind of gone out as far as I want to go out right now to pull comps. I'm going to take my statuses and I'm going to go back another. Remember, we can go back up to like 6 months to try to get appropriate comps. So let's see what that adds for us. This 2,200 one at 740,000. I'm just confirming that it does not have a pool. That one's pretty similar. It's single story. I like to compare single stories and doubles and 2 stories, apples to apples. But at 2-story and a 1-story, we just know that a 1-story might pull a little higher sales value than a 2-story. So just kind of keep that in mind. But I do like this one, so I'm going to check this one as a potential comp. And then let's see here. I got another one, 2,600 square feet. Here on Turnbridge, we're going to scroll backwards. Has solar, but it does have similar lot size. So I like that one as well. So see how I'm kind of looking for properties similar to what I was doing for buyers. I'm looking for properties that have closed that are similar in size, similar in upgrades, similar in neighborhood, right? Because this is going to help us justify that closed values. These are ones that successfully closed escrow. Okay, But now what I want to do is I'd like to see a little bit more about what my competition is. Okay, so I've checked these boxes, which means these properties are going to stay with us no matter what. Okay, so now that I've got my closed sales, I'm going to come up here to edit and I'm going to eliminate my shapes. Okay, it's going to keep these boxes checked in those properties, but it's going to show me here's some other properties that are similar on the market to mine. But I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to change the lot size to be a little closer so that we're not pulling super big lots or super small lots. So if I toggle back over to that other window, my lot size is 0.1096 acres. Okay, if I go back to my list, just so you know, I have it set up where it pulls both acres and square footage. So if I want to see the lot square footage, it's about 4,700 square feet. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here, and for my lot size, you can toggle between acres or square footage here. So it's got the button pushed for square footage. So I'm going to say, hey, I want lot size from 4,000 square feet to 7,000 square feet. Okay, so now what I'm looking at in all of Vacaville, and I'm going to update this so it's only pulling, even if I zoom out, just listings inside of Vacaville. Okay, what I'm looking at is, hey, other homes that are, I'm going to adjust this square footage down to 3,000. Other homes that are 1,900 square feet to 3,000 square feet that are similar in lot size, that 4,000 to 7,000. They're not postage stamps, but they're not like, you know, pool size yards per se, that were built, you know, in the realm of, you know, not super new. Okay, inside of Vacaville that don't have a pool. What are those other homes selling for? Okay, this is important because this is my competition. People who are looking in Vacaville for this style or size of house. In fact, for our shoppers, this one has 4 bedrooms. So I may even want to go in here for this purpose, not necessarily for comps, but for looking at listing prices. If I'm trying to like minimize this, I might say, hey, properties with 4 bedrooms. Okay. So I'm just, again, looking for who my competition is. And then I'm going to go display. I'm going to go back to that one line grid so I can see what that spread looks like. Throughout the city, who am I competing with? Okay. My boxes are still checked for those that are from the neighborhood that I liked as far as comps go, that we're all kind of in those mid 700,000s. Okay. You've got some properties. So, right. So if we go, hey, let's look at the list to close price, right? So for those that are active, it shows the list price, or for those that are pending, it shows the list price. For those that have closed, it's going to show the sold value. But I'm wanting to see here, the goal is when looking at these properties, if I'm pricing it in the mid 700s, which is kind of where those comps are pointing me with based on closed sales, am I pricing with the market, ahead of the market, behind the market, right? So how is it in line with everything else? So if I look at this, let's see here. We're going to come back to the map view. So I'm just going to hit review. I'm going to hit revise criteria to go back to that. And then I might zoom in just a little bit. Like, let's look, we were looking up here at Foxborough. So let's kind of keep it on the north side of, is that the north side? It's the south side of Alamo. I should know because the map is pointing down, and see what the properties are close first, right? So we've got a property over here that sold for 610. It's a much older property. We've got 650 for a newer home than that last one we just looked at, but it's only 1,900 square feet, right? We've got an active or a contingent property here at 620 that's 2,200 square feet. And this one I might be like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Let's see what that looks like. It's a different neighborhood, right? So we have to know our neighborhoods when doing this. Trying to get inside the property. All right, so we're like builder basic. We got original fans, we've got carpets, we've got, oh, updated windows. That's an interesting picture of an updated window. You've got step downs, you've got those tile countertops and oak cabinets, along with probably the original appliances. So this one, you know, if somebody's looking at this one and looking at my property, they're going to be willing to pay more for my property that is a much more modern look and feel. Okay, so that one's not my favorite, right? So I'm trying to think of this like a buyer. What are buyers looking at? Let's look over here. This one's pending. This one's 2,800 square feet. Over here on Indigo. Oh, it's really nice and pretty. This is probably what my sellers were going for, but they didn't quite get there. It's got hard floors throughout the downstairs, huge kitchen, dining space, right? Updated appliances, nice master or owner's suite, right? It's got a nice big loft. So this one's probably a little higher. I'm okay with that one being higher than where I want to come on. I definitely wouldn't want to come on at the same price of that one because that's a much nicer house. If it's between that house and my house, somebody's gonna be like, well, give me that one. It's bigger, it's fancier, it's nicer, right? I think you've got this one on Sitka. This one's a good comp because it's about 2,300 square feet. So it's pretty close. It's 4 bedrooms, built in 2017. This one, it's like, you know, urban paradise. You've got your cement covering the backyard. You got carpet in the bedrooms comparable to mine. You've got a nice ensuite, which is similar to mine. It's got like a fake fireplace in there. Kitchen, it's got tile on the floors like mine does with the nice, it's got darker cabinets. So this is right, a good comp. Like somebody who's looking at this property might also be looking at my property. This one's got tile throughout. So I like this one. So I'm going to check that box because that gives me another active property. This one's been on the market for 20 days. Okay. So what I might do as part of my comping process is I might pick up the phone and call this listing agent and say, hey, I'm just checking in. You're listing over there on Sitka. I've noticed it's been on the market about 3 weeks. How much activity have you been getting on it? Right? Oh, we've been getting some random showings or not much. Like I think we're priced a little high, or what kind of feedback have you been getting, right? So you might be able to get some information from that listing agent on that property, which would be beneficial in helping you to price yours because we don't want to sit on the market for 3 months. Okay, we want to get the property sold, so we want to price it appropriately without leaving something on the table. All right, let's look over here. Oh, we've got Zachary. I think I looked at these already. Yeah. All right. Let's look down here and see what we've got. So these are those older neighborhoods. They just don't have the same sales. So I kind of like this neighborhood. Kind of like to stay in there. I'm going to draw a little because I think, you know, if we're comparing a property that was built in 1980 to a property that was built in 2000, people are going to be more willing to pay more for a newer property. Okay. We could look down here. I think I clicked on this one. This is a much different neighborhood as well. So, but still listed at 650 for 2,000 square feet. I think this is one we actually looked at the other day. Don't ask me why I always scroll through the pictures backwards. It's probably because my favorite part of a house is the yard. So I always start there. And if you scroll backwards, the yard pictures are usually the last picture on there. So that's probably why I go backwards. This one has older windows. It is updated nicely on the inside. It's a really pretty house. The neighborhood's not as nice as the other one. So just kind of keep that in mind. We've got some other ones over here. Let's look at these. 2,600 square feet, pending at 745. These are going to be a little newer, right? These were built in 2019, but not a whole lot newer. Okay, but this might be a good because this is similar property as far as age goes and square footage, which is good. So it's a newer neighborhood. So I like that one. It's pending. We've got a couple other closed sales over here. So again, we're not going to be able to use these for like an appraisal. but we could use these for the sake of, pricing our property as far as what's selling and what's not. So we're going to pull those in on there. This one's a little fancier. Let's see here. It's a little larger too, so that's good to know. So we're going to click that one as well. Let's see here. We've got the Cooper School area properties as well. Again, these are older homes built in like the 80s and early 90s. So for the most part, we're going to stay away from those. All right. So now I feel like I've got a pretty good array of comps from some of the newer neighborhoods. Okay. Properties that are aged similar to my property. I'm going to come over here to displays now. Actually, what I'm going to do is, so I've got all these properties checked. I'm going to say, hey, I want these checked properties. Okay. So I'm just double checking what's checked. I've got an active, a pending, some closed properties, 2 active, 2 pending. All right. So I've got 2 active, 2 pending, and several closed properties. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, let's add it to a cart. Okay. I'm going to add to a new cart, and I'm going to call this one 8067 Finchley, right? Listing comps. And I'm going to hit add. Okay, now the reason I did that is now that I've done my search on properties, I've found some properties that I'm happy with that are going to be my competition, some that justify like, hey, what's moving, what's in contract versus what's on the market. And I've got some closed listings. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to carts. I'm going to find that property, that cart that I just created. I put an extra number in there. And I'm going to click on that. So I just went to carts. So I love carts. So this is another feature that I love for 2 reasons. 1 for comps, 2 for showing properties, because this allows me to save those comps. Okay. So here is my range of properties. All of these are between, it looks like 700,000 and about 770 is kind of the range, 780 for that one. Square footage wise on lots, they're all very similar. You can look at that here. This one's a little larger, this one on Via del Sol. Square footage wise, they're mostly similar. Okay, this one's a little on the larger side, but I'm going to keep it in there just because it's from the same neighborhood and it's pending. Okay, it was also on the market for 26 days. Chances are they went in the contract a little lower than where they're listed at, but it might be that I make a call to the active properties and the pending properties to see if I can glean some more information from those agents so that I can make sure to price mine appropriately. Because again, I want to price it with the market. So when we go to price properties, which is different than writing an offer on a property, with an offer, we want to see kind of like our gauge is focused mainly on those closed sales, right? Where do we think that we're going to be able to get this property to appraise for? What's this property going to appraise for so that we can advise our buyers on kind of what that's going to look like, because their loan amount's going to be based on that appraised value. Okay, so we want it to appraise at or above our contract price, not below it. So we want to kind of have a good picture of what we think it's going to appraise for. Versus our listing, we want to price it with the market, not ahead of the market and not behind the market, because our goal is to go on the market, draw several buyers into it with the intention that hopefully we get it sold, maybe even multiple offers, that it doesn't sit on the market where people feel like they can get a bargain. And if we can get multiple offers on it, that's actually going to help to drive that price up. So that's kind of our intention when we're looking at comps for a listing. It's a little different than a buyer. We're still going to need to justify this to a appraisal or an appraiser, but oftentimes it makes it a little easier on a listing, being the listing agent, of justifying that versus a buyer transaction. So just kind of keep that in mind. So our closed sales come into line. They're going to help tell us what's the market doing, what are things closing at. But our active and pending are going to say, well, what's going on with each property? What's our current like average days on market? Right? So, even our pending properties are sitting kind of right at 20 days, 20 to 25 days on market. So that's kind of what we can anticipate. And then we want to price it in line with those properties. Now, this one at 2234 Newcastle is listed at 700,000. It's 2,500 square feet. It's been on the market for 56 days. If I have to guess before we look at this property, I'm going to guess that it needs some love. So let's take a peek at it because I want to see, is this one like a legit comp? Or is there a reason that it's sitting there? It says it's my dream home. It's got a neutral color scheme. So the question is, why is this one sitting on the market so long? So it could be because this is virtual staging versus it's a vacant home. So remember, our vacant homes, they take longer to sell by nature. There's nothing super wrong with this property, not like I was anticipating. The floors are probably like a cheaper floor. It's got a transition strip in there. So it could have to do a little bit with that. It could be that people didn't like the updates that were done with the black and white. Yeah, but it's basically like kind of builder basic. It's very similar to our property as far as size goes and layout goes. So I'm surprised that it's kind of sitting on the market at 700,000. Let's just double check here. Schedule a showing. Sometimes in the private remarks, you can find more information. Oh, this one's sitting on the market because of who the listing agency is. Just throwing that out there. They're difficult to work with. All right, that explains a lot of why this is sitting on the market. The other thing that you may want to do is look at this. It's listed at 700,000. Let's look at the property history. There we go. To see, it started at 730,000 and then it's had several price reductions over the time. Again, a lot of this I think has to do with the brokerage associated with this property, as they are sometimes difficult to work with. I've never worked with that agent, but sometimes it's difficult to get a hold of an agent to get information on the property. So that could be why it's sitting. We find that sometimes that happens. So anyways, so there's that one. So we want to take that into account, that this one's been sitting on the market for 2 months and it's similar to our property at 700,000. Okay, but based on this information, here's what I would go off of. So let's order it by square footage. If I were going to list this property for sale right now at 2,400 square feet, 4 bedrooms, right? It's right in here at 4,700 square feet. I am probably going to recommend, right? So we never like necessarily pinpoint that. We're going to put a range on there. We've got some bigger properties that are selling 740, 760, 780. We've got some smaller properties that have sold. This one's got a little bigger lot size at 740, 710, 725, 765, kind of right in that range there. Lancaster's at 730. I'm going to probably recommend that they come on the market somewhere between 710 and 730. Okay. Because I don't want to come on the market higher than properties that are bigger than mine, that are very similar in size and age and characteristics, neighborhoods. I don't want to come on the market higher. But I also wouldn't want to come on the market at like 680 and undervalue this home. This is showing. So if we looked at some of those older comps, it might point us into that like 650 to 680 range for the properties that were similar in size, but that were built much earlier, like in the 80s and 90s. So keeping it with homes that were kind of built in the 2000s, right? Kind of right in our price range, or right in our house's age, because it was built in 2012. Is that how you say that? So I would probably recommend to these people that they should list it somewhere between like 720, 710 to 720-ish, maybe 730-ish, up to 730. I would say they could justify listing it in that 730 range. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions or thoughts? I get a thumbs up from Iris. Fabulous. All right. So what we can do next, right, is we want to put this together in a format that we can present to our potential sellers. So we talked about with the buyer transactions that we could just throw it into a quick list because they don't need to necessarily see all the details of those other properties that have sold. We don't want them to feel like they missed out on something. So we just want that quick list. For our people that we're just doing a quick comp for that we're going to send to them once a year, we could use RPR. But for our sellers, we want to use a better system than that. So I'm going to check this box. Remember, I'm inside the cart. So I'm going to leave all of these set up as comps. I think they're all decent comps. And I'm going to come up here to CMA, which is on the blue toolbar. Okay, when I click that CMA option, it's going to give me that option for like the Barry's CMA packages, or I can go to Cloud CMA. So for this one to present to a potential seller, I want to go to Cloud CMA because it's a much prettier, more encompassing report that looks nicer. All right, so we're going to name the report. If I had the seller's names, I would put them here like Mr. and Mrs. I can't spell, it's all right though. Seller, right? Or the Finchley family, right? Whoever it is. You're going to plug in the property address for the property that is going to be sold. What this is going to do is it'll auto-populate and then it usually plugs in the tax data for you. Okay, magic. There, and then down here, it says, how do you want them? Do you want quick and dirty or the exact? It's pulled over the MLS numbers for all the properties that the boxes were checked for. So all those listings that we had hand selected, it's going to pull all of those in. So we're just going to come down and hit that fetch listings button. Cloud CMA would be a good one. I wonder if I can get somebody to host us a webinar for Cloud CMA because it's got so many features that are underutilized. Okay, so here's that Cloud CMA. If I have a pretty good idea of what I think it should be listed for, I might say, hey, we should go 710,000 to 730,000. If I don't have an idea, I could leave this blank. Or sometimes if I'm dropping it off as part of my pre-listing package prior to our appointment, I don't fill this in because I don't want them to know what I'm thinking necessarily as a price because I don't want them to make a decision on choosing me as their listing agent based solely on what I'm telling them for price. I want to get in front of them first. So if I haven't met with them, I leave this blank. If I've met with them and I'm just kicking this over, like maybe we already signed the listing agreement. So oftentimes what I'll do is I might meet with a seller. We sign the listing agreement, but it's not going to go on the market for like 6 weeks or so. What I usually do is in my listing agreement, I put a caveat in there that we're going to revisit the list price 2 weeks prior to the on market date. So now we're revisiting that list price. I'm putting together a new comp sheet for them. So now I'm spelling this out again for them on kind of that range of where they should choose. That's usually where I'll put in a range. First meeting, I usually don't, or I may print out one without the range in there to drop off on their doorstep with their pre-listing package. But what I'm going to bring with me to their house might have the range on there. So I'm reminded as to what I thought the value was. Okay, hopefully that made sense to everybody. Here it's got the listings. It's talking about, hey, how do we want it sorted, right? And right now it's sorting them by status is what that's called. I don't do any notes or adjustments on these. Okay. And then I'm just going to go into customize report. So notice on the first page, I just put in the house information and I named the report. Here, if it's not the first time they're seeing this, we're putting in the value range here. Again, I'm never going to put like, you should go on the market at 725. Like I want to lead them in that, but I'm not going to put it on paper because ultimately they're in charge of what their property gets listed for. But I'm saying, hey, this is a range that I would be comfortable listing this property at that I think is going to get it sold. Okay. And then I'm just going to hit customize report. I highly recommend that you go in there and play with Cloud CMA because they have so many options that you can do with your CMA report and settings, from your theme to layout to fonts to templates, right? Do you want a cover page on there so you can customize all of that? You also, just so you know, that you're going to have 2 options. One is a PDF version of this CMA report. The second is a live report, which is if you brought your computer with you, you could actually pull up that live report and it goes through it like a slideshow. Make sure you take time to customize the live CMA report, because customizing these settings here does not customize what people see on that live report. It is not the same thing. Okay, so you need to customize that separately. All of these things here are standard toolkits. This additional content, they don't cost anything. The realtor.com listing toolkit, those things are going to cost you money. Okay, and the power packages and the Tom Ferry pages, those are all going to add additional costs. So everything that I'm showing you today is free. Okay, I like free. So I have a map of all listings on here. I have the summary of comparable properties. If you want to see what that looks like, notice I'm hovering over, it's got the little eyeball. If you click on the little eyeball, it's going to click open a preview of what that is. Okay, so there's that summary. It groups them by status. And I'm like, oh, I like that. All right, so I've got a map, I've got the summary, I've got details and the first dozen photos for each listing. I've got comparable property statistics and sold property analysis. So I like that. And then I might come back over here to my standard and say, hey, what do we got here? We've got introduction. They've got a resume. You could do your whole pre-listing package inside of Cloud CMA. I don't do that because I have a pre-listing package. So I'm really just using this for the comps purposes. Okay. Here's what you can pull. The listings chapter, just so you know, that's just like a title page for that chapter. You've got more photos. You've got adjustments. I don't make adjustments to the property. I'm not an appraiser. I can't tell you how much value a pool gets or solar or anything like that. So that's the adjustment page. So I don't include any of those. You might like them. I'm going to include, let's look at this online valuation analysis. Here's shows you how the Zestimate stacks up. I like this page, so I'm going to hit add to report, because here's the reality, right? People are looking at what is on Zillow for their house when they go to list it. Okay, here it shows that, hey, the Zestimate shows 728, it's listed at 700. This shows 731, it's listed at 725, right? So that's what it's showing. So I'm going to say add that one to the report. If we wanted to include the suggested list price, we would want to make sure to include that page. Otherwise, it's not going to show up anywhere. And if we didn't have a suggested list price, we may not want that one in there. So let's go ahead and add that one in there for kicks. Let's see, we've got some other things in here, the closing chapter, marketing action plan, why do you need a right? So it's got a lot of stuff in here that you can go in there, the importance of staging your home, first time impressions are lasting. So again, you could really build your pre-listing packet inside of Cloud CMA and have it set up. You've got guidance like selling your home in a tough market, negotiating with buyers, right? Maybe we look at that one and say, hey, what's this? Does this add value to it? Right. It just talks about that. It's a lot of words. I'm not going to add that one in. Here's a CMA versus appraisal, online home valuation tools. Just talks about like what those are and why they may or may not be accurate. So again, you can go in there and choose what you want to include and what you don't want to include. If you've got client testimonials, you might include that. If you're including things like your bio and stuff, make sure you've got that stuff edited and into Cloud CMA so it does show up. Okay, so I'm going to leave mine at this. I have the map of all listings. I have the, here, we're going to include this, what is a CMA report as well. Notice it's got like kind of pages in order of what it likes. If I decide to take something out, I just highlight it and then hit the little negative button. So plus to add, minus to take away. So I've got what is a CMA, map of all listings, summary of comparable properties, the listings, which are those comparable properties, comparable property statistics, the online valuation analysis, the sold property analysis, and a suggested list price. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit that publish report button. It's going to take me back to my home page while it processes and creates that report. Okay, so once it finishes publishing, notice here it's going to give me a PDF link, and then I've got the view live link. I did not go in there and edit the view live. So the view live has so much stuff in it that I don't want in there. I'm not even going to show it to you. I'm just going to pull up that view PDF. now that that report's published. So this is the one that I just selected. Once I make those changes to the report, it usually keeps them. So here it talks about like, what is a CMA? How is it created? How accurate are them? Right? Are they? How are them? That was good. Here's that map of comparable listings. And this is where when I sit down with them, I would explain that, hey, I'm looking at these properties over here and over here because these are our competition. These are neighborhoods that are similar to yours. They're similar in age. The properties are similar in size and lot size, like very similar neighborhoods to yours, whereas some of the other neighborhoods are much older properties, right? So it gives me that summary of properties and it has their information there as well. Then it groups them by sold, pending, and active with those averages in there. Here's those comparable properties side by side. So it's comparing all the details. It's got a 4-up plan. So it's got our subject property with 3 additional properties. And it does that on each page. So each page, when they flip to it, it has their property with the other options. So they can see side by side comparisons of those. It doesn't show the photos anymore, even though it says it's supposed to. It never pulls the photos over, but that's all right. Comparable property statistics, right? So here's the sold listings. The average price is $748,000. The pending listing, the average price is $757,000, and the active listing $712,000. Okay, now if anything, these active listings are going to justify why I'm saying, hey, $720,000 to $730,000 on that list price. Because although properties have sold for more, what's currently on the market, what our competition is saying that the market isn't super stable. Our average days on market's kind of going up a little bit, right? Here's our online valuation analysis. Now, it does not pull over the subject property into this one. It would be nice if it did. It'd be nice if it just threw it out there and said, here's what it shows, but it does not. Sold property analysis. Most properties sold at 96% of their list price with an average of 65 days on the market, right? So my conversation with them is going to be like, you know, here's our original list prices and here's what it sold for. Our goal is to get your property on the market at the appropriate price so that it sells at 100% of the list price instead of us having to go down because it's sitting on the market. Okay, we want to be more like Via del Sol that listed low and closed higher. And then there's my suggested list price, 710 to 730. And it's going to be mainly based on those active sales. So that's how I like to do my CMA report. And that's how I pull comps for a potential listing, is doing it that way. Now, I will let you know that if we start talking about semi-custom homes, we start looking at homes that are in the country that are more spread out, our radius is going to go out further. When it comes to like country properties, we can go out much further. If we're looking at lot sizes that are like a 1/4 acre or more, which isn't consistent in that neighborhood, then we're going to be looking at the whole city for those comps because we want to find properties that are similar in size, similar in lot size when we start talking about some of those bigger properties in square footage or in lot size or those country properties. What questions do you guys have, or did this make sense to everybody? Do you feel like this gave you a good solid overview of like listing a home for sale?
Yeah, for me, this is Ralph. How you doing? Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's been a while since I've been on one of these. It's busy. Um, for me, I'm glad you went over the one on the MLS because I forgot how to use the toggle and all that good stuff. If you don't use it, you lose it, right? But I
Yeah.
use the CMA a lot more because that's where I started with Ed, and that's where I forgot about this part because we kind
Yeah.
of briefly went over it. But today, I'm glad I came on and it opened up some doors, so that's great.
Good, good. And I'll see if I can't get somebody from Cloud CMA to come do a training for us. Because like I said, Cloud CMA is chock full of features that we can utilize for both buyers and sellers. It's a really good tool. So I'll see if I can get somebody on to do a webinar for our office because it's such a valuable option and it's free. It's provided to us because we're members of Barry's. So
Correct. Yeah, and it's very professional looking and everything.
okay,
So it's like really good.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep. Was this helpful to anybody else? Any other questions? Did I confuse anybody?
I guess quiet means they know.
It means they're good. Or I've confused them so much they're afraid to say so. All right. Fabulous. I hope you guys found this helpful. I get a thumbs up from Iris. Thank you for that. Hope you guys found this helpful. As always, if you start running comps, you've got a potential listing, you should be working with a mentor if you're a newer agent. If you're a more experienced agent, you don't have a mentor, reach out to somebody to get a second opinion on pricing. I have agents, from our office that do that all the time, especially with me. They'll reach out and say, hey, can you just verify that what I'm thinking? It's usually agents that I've mentored in the past, but they usually reach out and they're like, hey, can you tell me if what I'm thinking is accurate? Right. So, and then I just double check to make sure that they go in with just a second set of eyes on that. There's never anything wrong with asking another agent to give you some input and some help to make sure that we're getting ready to list those properties at the right price. So it's so key, right? We want to make sure we list it, that it's not sitting on market longer than the average days on market, that we're not giving money away, but that we're not also sitting there for 56 days where now they've done multiple price reductions and people are still going to think that, well, it's listed at 700,000, but it's been on the market for 2 months. Like, I bet I can get a deal on that. I bet I can get it for less than what it's listed at, because that's what we think about when things sit on the market too long. So just kind of keep that in mind. Fabulous. If you guys need anything, feel free to reach out. There's no training next Monday. I am traveling for the next 6 days. We'll be back on Thursday. I don't remember what we're training on Thursday. Let's see. We are training on writing competitive offers. We'll talk about ways that we can tweak that purchase agreement to make it more appealing for a seller to get our offers accepted. So we'll talk about more than just what we can change than price. All right. Fabulous. I'll see you guys all on next Thursday, 9 a.m.
Thank you.
You're welcome.